Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Welcome everyone, and thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm really excited to share a tutorial with you guys. It is for a triple envelope, and I had a request from one of my YouTube viewers, Brenda Meredith, if I would share how I made my triple envelopes, and then also she still wanted to know how I made my hidden paper clips. So Brenda, I am working on that tutorial next, but I did start with this one, and she was inspired, I think, by, I'm part of Smash That Small Paper Pad collab, and I had done these really cute little triple envelopes for that collab, and so she had asked for a tutorial on that. And I do apologize, Brenda, for taking a while to get to the tutorial, just because last month was kind of a bad month. We had a death in the family and I got behind on a lot of stuff. So, and this was one of them, but I did finish these today, so I'm really excited to show you. And if you watch the tutorial, it will be this one right here is the one that we'll be making in the tutorial. They're all very similar. Just different colors and paper. So when you open them up, they just have a triple envelope, and you can stick whatever you want in these. You can stick some sort of happy mail like die cuts if you're into making junk journals. You could stick journaling cards into them, or little notes or letters. The only thing it would be that if you were going to use these in a junk journal, I would not add the floral embellishments like I did. I would leave them flatter than that, and maybe just add lace or a die cut or a stamped image, just because these would be too bulky for an actual junk journal. And so again, here is this one right here. This one is kind of pretty. It has a little bit of teal and some flowers in it. And so that's what that one looks like opened, and the back side of that one. And then here is the other one that I created, very similar to the very first one that I showed you. Just I changed the little sentiment out a little bit. And some of the paper might be slightly different on that one. And this one I did add just a little die cut. I had it sitting on my desk, so I did glue that one down on this one. And this one I left the ribbon not attached, but you could very easily, and I do show you how to do that in the tutorial, to glue the ribbon underneath the paper so that it's attached. And then just to go over the supplies real quick, the flowers were all just flowers from my stash from several different sources. But the paper that I used, all the paper does come from Bo Bunny, and one of them was from this Forever Fall collection, and the other one was from Autumn Song. And then this little stamped sentiment, A Season of Blessings, came from Close to My Heart, and it's called Flourished Blessings. So before I get into the tutorial, I did also want to just thank Brenda Meredith again for asking for a tutorial on this. And Brenda, since you've been a long-time subscriber and it's been a while since I've done any Happy Mail or a giveaway, I decided I would like to give you the one that I'm doing in the tutorial, which is this one right here. So Brenda, if you are interested in having me send you this as Happy Mail, I would love to send that to you. And so Brenda, I will have my email listed in the description box. Or if you feel more comfortable, you can find me. I know that you're in my group, Paper Play with Julie K on Facebook. You could also message me through Facebook and find and give me your address that way too, if you feel more comfortable that way. But either way, make sure you comment below in the description box letting me know how you're going to get a hold of me so that I can verify that it is you that I'm sending this out to. But I would love to send this out to you, and I will stick some sort of fun little item in the pockets for you, so there'll be something extra in with that. So for those of you who are interested in sticking around for the tutorial, I will get going on that, and again, we will be making this one in the tutorial. So to make this project, you are going to need a few basic supplies. Of course, you are going to need envelopes, so whether you choose to make your own envelopes or use some store-bought ones, which is what I will be using, You will need 3, and if you choose to have a template, you will need 4, so I will be using 4. You also need some sort of paper, and I am choosing to work with this Bo Bunny Autumn Song collection. If you want, you also can choose a couple of embellishments like die cuts or ribbon, that kind of stuff for decorating if you want. Also, you'll need like a scissors or a paper cutter. And I'm also going to be using some paper clips just to hold things together. But those are not required if you don't have paper clips. Also some sort of glue, whatever your favorite wet glue, or you could also use a glue stick. And let's see, what you will also need a little bit of ribbon. I chose a couple different ones here. I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to use, but ribbon is the other main item that you need. And I think that that's kind of just the basics of everything that you need to put these envelopes together. So to begin with, I'm just going to show you guys real quick how you put it together in case there are a few of you who like to just see the basic idea, but you don't really like to watch the whole assembly and decorating process. I will just tell you real quick, and then that way also those of you who are going to stick around for the whole video kind of have an idea of how the whole thing is going to go together. So again, you for sure need 3 envelopes to make this project. And my envelopes are 5 by 4 if you are wondering, but you can make them with any type of envelope you want. And I usually like ones with some sort of nicer looking flap on them. And again, you can make your own or store buy them. And the basic method of how you put these together is really simple. Is you have your envelopes open, and you would glue this envelope on top of that envelope. And again, you just want to make sure that when you glue it down, that it's slightly above where it would bend, so you don't want to put it on the fold line. And then again, you would again do the exact same thing up on the 3rd envelope. And once they are all attached, then you go ahead and you add your paper and your decorating. And then you would fold it up like this. And then this one folds up and under, and of course this one would have been glued down, so it would have been flat. And so then you have that, and then you have, that's how you, the basic assembly of this project. And so now I'm actually going to do it with those of you that want to follow along for the whole process. And so oftentimes what I like to do is take a couple of paper clips and my envelopes, and I will just kind of assemble them without gluing them, just so I can kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like. And so I just attach the paper clips on the side. Because a lot of times I will mass produce these and then lay out papers after I have them cut, and this gives me kind of an idea of what I'm doing. You don't have to do this. You can glue them right away if you want, but I like to do this. And then I kind of already somewhat cut up some of my papers. And again, I'm using that Bo Bunny paper pad that I showed you in the beginning. So I was thinking, like on this one, that would be my top one. I'm going to do that as my middle one. And then for the bottom one, I'm going to attach this piece of paper. And so then the other thing to think about then when you're choosing your papers is, so now when this is open, you're going to flip it up. So whatever paper you put here, you want to make sure that the pattern makes sense. And then of course this will flip up this way and this flap goes down. So again, when you choose your patterns, you want to kind of think about how you want your patterns to look. And sometimes it's easier to use papers that don't really matter on the directions, but like on this one, you definitely want to make sure that the pattern looks right, because when you close it, it's going to be like this, and this is going to be your front, and then you'll choose papers for the inside and the back. And I have a couple papers cut out here, but I just like to take a look at it once before I start gluing down to make sure I like the way that it looks. So that's what it'll look like when it's open, and that's the way it's going to look like on the back sides. So the next step is, once you've kind of had an idea of how you want to lay out your papers, you are going to want to cut these down to size. So you do need to decide if you want to border on your envelopes. And what I mean by that is you can see a little bit of the white showing here. And when you are on the inside, you can also see that these are all open, and this is what we're going to make the template for, is these pieces of paper, so that they lay nicely on top of the envelope. And so that's why I like to choose to use another envelope that's exactly the same to create my template. And I'll show you guys how I do that. And you can either cut with the scissors or use a cutting board, and I'm going to use a cutting mat board here. And the first thing that I do is I do cut off the flap on the top. And you can save that because you can use that as your template for cutting out your paper for the top here. So save that. And then the next step that I like to do is I will, because I don't mind that border showing on the side, so I go ahead and cut this down a little bit on each side. So I just trim off just a little bit on each side. So I mean, just a sliver, I mean an eighth or so if you need to be exact. And I cut that off on both sides of the envelope. And then I go ahead and also cut a little bit off of the bottom, again, like an eighth, about an eighth of an inch or less. And so then you should have two pieces. This one's just scrap. You can use it for something in your junk journals or whatever. As a base for something else. So here is your template. So the next thing on this little template that we're going to do is I also like to cut a little strip off of each side right here, just so I have another little bit of a border showing. And you might have to fold your envelope slightly to make this work, but I'll just fold this piece back just temporarily. Again, this is a template, so it doesn't matter if it has folds in it. And I gotta fold it one more time just to get it out of the way. What I'm going to do is just cut the little strip off right here. So hopefully you can see that. Again, I'm just cutting off approximately an eighth of an inch or so. And then also I'm going to cut off just a little bit on this top edge right here also. And I fold it back in place. And at this point you can either kind of fold it in half and use your scissors to trim it so that it's even up here if you want, or you can use your cutting board again and cut off the strip up top. So I'm just going to use my scissors and I'm just going to even it out there so that it's exactly the same. So now we've created our template, and then I usually just write the word template on it so then I know it's a template. So again, take out your papers, and now you can cut your papers to size. If you want, use a pencil and you can trace on the back side, or if you want you can just hold them together and cut. So usually I'll just use my paper clips again and just hold my paper in place. I just find that helpful. And I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut as straight as I possibly can. But if you would rather, you can take your pencil and then just trace the template. And then I'll go ahead and I will double check to make sure that it's going to look okay when I put it down. So as you can see, if I were to glue it down, there is just a little bit of border on each side, and then also up here and down here. If you want, you can still trim it a little bit more if you want it a little bit smaller border. That's just a personal preference. And so I am going to go ahead and cut this paper exactly the same, and then also this paper using the template. And I'll do that off camera, and then I'll come back and show you guys, and then we'll go ahead and start gluing some things together. So I'll be back shortly. So I did finish cutting all the little V's out of each of these, and I went ahead and attached them back onto my envelopes just to make sure that I liked the way that they looked, because you could still rearrange them a little bit if you wanted to. And then I also took a look at the back, And I believe originally I had the green on top and I decided to move it down in the middle just because I like the 2 oranges on the outside. And then I also take one last look at what it's going to look like when it's folded up. So, you know, this will be the back and this will be the front, just to make sure that it looks pleasing to the eye and that there's nothing really goofy looking about the way the paper orientation is, such as if you had some sort of image, it might look funny. So that's why I always try and use paper that has really, that you could use almost any direction, because sometimes if you had, like, let's say a person on here, that it might look good this way, but then when you have it open this way, it might be upside down. So just think about that before you glue down your papers. And if you're happy with the way everything looks, we'll go ahead and we'll assemble this part of it, and then we'll add the top, and then of course decorate the front, just basically. And so I'm going to go ahead and take it apart, and what I will do is I'll just assemble it so that I know my top piece, my middle piece, and then my bottom. And again, you don't have to use the paper clips. I just like to visually see it before I glue it all together, so that's just what I like to do. So I'll set those aside, and then I'm also going to grab the sheets from behind and do the top, middle, and bottom. So then I have those in order also, and I'll set those aside. I'll take off all my paper clips. And I like to start with attaching my envelopes together. So again, we're just going to glue them on top of each other on the flaps. And again, choose whatever type of glue you like to use. I like to use tacky glue. And so I'm just going to put just some glue around each of the edges, and then slightly in from the fold line on the flap, and just a little bit in the middle. Then I'll go ahead and lay this envelope on top of that flap and line it up. And again, you want to make sure that you are not gluing right on top of the fold, because you want it to fold up very nicely. And you can either use some binder clips, or again, just use your paper clips to kind of keep it in place while it's drying. I'm just going to turn it over real quick and just make sure that the glue attached. And it still folds nicely. So then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the top envelope. Again, you just want to make sure that when you glued it down that you are slightly above the fold line, so again that it will fold nicely. So next I will start gluing down my papers. And again, this is my top, my middle, and my bottom. So I'll go ahead and start at the bottom and work my way up to the top. And I just attach the glue on the back side. And again, here you can take one last peek before you glue it down to make sure you're happy with the way it looks and the little bit of white border. And of course, if you guys like to ink your edges, you can go ahead and do that. But since this paper line does have some white in it, I'm okay with my edges being white. But if you prefer to ink the edges and distress them, you can do that with some ink and a blending tool. And I like to just take like an old gift card and I just kind of smooth out the glue underneath just to make sure. You can also use a bone folder. And if you have any glue seep out, make sure that you wipe it up with a paper towel or a rag or whatever you have on your table. So that's the bottom one done. And then I'm going to go ahead, and this should be set so I can take these off. It should be attached. I'm going to go ahead and then glue on my middle piece. So that side's done, and we will go ahead and add some paper to this white part. You can, of course, leave that blank if you want, but I do like to put some paper, but I like to finish it and then just see what kind of paper scraps I have left. So I'll go ahead and do the back side. And again, on this one, if you do want a closure, you need to think about that before you do any gluing. So like on this sample that I did a while back, you can see I have a piece of seam binding, and that would be glued down to the top one right underneath where the flap is. So you do need to think about that if you want to tie some sort of ribbon on that before you do any gluing. So I'm going to flip this over again, and I'm going to do one last lineup of my papers before I add a piece of ribbon and glue them down. I just want to make sure I like how they look one last time. So I'm going to flip it over so I can see what it's going to look like that. I'm good with the way the images are. And when that flips up, that being kind of my front, I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that being my back. So I do like that orientation. So we're going to glue those down. But so for this one, I will go ahead and start with the top so that I don't forget to add a piece of ribbon. And I'm just going to try and look at, I pulled out some different ribbons I had. This one's kind of an orange polka dotted one. I did have some fall themed ones, but I don't think those match this paper line very well. And I do have some sheer ribbon that would maybe be okay, but don't think I want to use that. Or else I have this really orange one, but this one's kind of more of a burnt orange color. Or I have this kind of gold yellow color, which would also look good with this paper. And I think I'm just going to go with this orange one. And this one's from American Crafts. It's some ribbon that I picked up a long time ago at Tuesday morning. And I've just been trying to slowly use things in my stash. So I'm going to unwind kind of a length of ribbon. And I'm going to fold it up one more time just so I kind of have an idea what size ribbon I need. So if that was folded up and I wanted to tie it. And I'm also kind of considering that I might stick a couple things in the envelope. So I'm going to give myself a little bit extra. And I can always use pieces on journals. So if I end up cutting some of that off, I'm okay. So the next step then is to attach the ribbon and then the paper. And so I'm just going to move that away. So to attach the ribbon, you can of course just glue your piece of paper over it, but I do like to adhere it a little bit better. So I will use a little bit of this red line tape. And I'm just going to approximate, find the middle. And I usually assume that the middle on envelopes is where the point of the envelope flap is. And so I'm just adding just a little bit of that in the middle. But you could also use glue if you want. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay my ribbon down. If you were trying to conserve your ribbon, you could just cut it and then put a little piece here and a little piece here. You don't have to use such a big piece, but I have lots of ribbon, so I'm not going to worry about that. And so I'm going to go ahead then and glue down my paper. So next you're going to glue the next two pieces down and make sure you don't accidentally glue down your ribbon, and because this is the only spot where you want it underneath is that top paper. And so that's kind of the start of it. And again, I'll take a little check here, and you will have to kind of rebend the top flap because it will be slightly different than the original bend in it just because you've added some envelopes to it. And it looks like I need to put a little more glue under this sheet, so I'm going to do that before we move on. So the next step is to go ahead and pick your paper for your top flap. And I can either choose to do, and I can't remember which I said I was going to do. I think I'm going to do the polka dotted on the inside because it's similar to this paper, so I think that would look good on the inside. And I'll use the yellow on the outside. So again, here when we made that template earlier, we did cut off the flap, so you have that as a template. You just need to decide which part of the paper you want showing, like if I want more of the orange or if I want more of the flowers. Or not the flowers, the leaves on this top one. I think I'm going to do more of the yellow. And so I'm just going to line up my template behind it. And again, you can cut it or trace it, whatever works best for you. I'm just going to go ahead and attach paper clips, and then I'm going to go ahead and trace and just snip it that way. And then your next thing that you need to think about, since it's on the front side and you don't have to worry about there being any of the lickable glue spots right here, you can either cover the whole cover or you can move it up slightly and glue it down, which is what I'm going to do. So then what I do here is I just move it up to where I think I like the look of it. You can see the little bit of border showing. I'm going to flip it over. So you can see the little bit of border showing. I'm going to kind of hold it in place there. I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to make a mark on the back side where the top is, because I'm going to cut off that little strip right there. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my cutting board here and I'm going to line up that pencil line, which I know you guys can't see on camera, but I'm going to line that up and I'm just going to cut that off. And then the other thing I think I want to do is, because I want a little bit more border showing on the sides right here, I'm just going to take my scissors and just snip off just a little bit on each of these ends. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just like that little bit of border showing when I can make it show. So once you're happy with it, then go ahead and glue it down. So then the next step is to go ahead and add paper to the inside of your flap. And again, I chose to use this paper right here. So I'm again going to decide, because right here there's that little bit of a leaf showing, but I think I'm just going to choose the polka dotted part here to show. And I'm just going to line up my template behind there again. And then I'm going to take a peek at what that looks like. And again, it's slightly bigger once you fold it, so I do need to do a little bit of trimming. And again, unfortunately, since these are store-bought envelopes and they do have the spot here where you lick, I don't want to put a border like this, because what will happen is if any moisture or humidity gets into your envelope, this part will end up sticking to your envelopes. So you do want to cover that whole inside. Of course, if you made your own envelopes, you don't have to worry about that. And on this one, I'm just going to again snip just a little bit down here, because it doesn't matter if there's just a little bit of a border showing right there. And then that way I want to make sure that when I glue it down that this end piece isn't going over the fold right there. So I'm just going to snip off just a little bit off of the end of this one. I'm going to go ahead and check the placement one more time before I glue it down. And again, I'm just trying to make sure that when it folds, that this scrapbooking paper is not going over the fold. So again, while the glue is still somewhat wet, I'm just going to fold it up and make sure that it folds nicely, and it does, and I can still tie it shut. So we're almost done with kind of the basics of this. At this point, you can choose to either leave these parts white, or you can glue in a little bit of scrapbooking paper. And when I cut down these sheets to fit for the envelopes, I do have some extra pieces of paper. So I'm going to try and use scraps, and I'll cut them down to size to put them in here. And usually what I will do is I'll cut them a little bit shorter, and then I'll just slip them into the envelopes. And then I'll glue them down like that on the inside. So you can make a decision if you want to use the exact same type of paper, or if you want some sort of contrasting paper. And it doesn't really matter what paper you choose. I'm just choosing some paper from my scraps. So I think those three will work okay. And so I'm going to cut them down slightly so that they fit inside better. So currently these ones were like 5.5 inches, and I'm just going to cut off maybe 1/4 of an inch and see if that fits into the pocket better. And so that does work nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the rest of these. Just cut off that little bit of 1/4 inch that needs to be cut off. And then the next step is to carefully glue these pieces inside the envelopes. So the big thing is once you do glue them in, is you just want to make sure that you run your fingers in there to make sure that none of the glue seeped out, so that you don't accidentally glue your envelope shut. So once you've added all your paper and your ribbon, you can decide if you want to take it a step further and decorate with a few embellishments. Earlier, this one I had shown had a piece of chipboard sticker on it that was added in the corner. You can also leave them blank. If you're adding them to a journal, you can add some laces or trims to them. And again, my recommendation is if you are going to be adding to a journal, that you leave it fairly flat, and you maybe just do some die cuts or some rubber stamping on it. Just some, a smaller amount of embellishments, because the more you add to it, the bulkier it's going to be. But if you're just handing it out in Happy Mail, you can do whatever you want to decorate. And I have a couple ideas to show you guys for decorating. First thing you can do, of course, is you could maybe add some 3D stickers or some die cuts. And I got these stickers a while ago at a rummage sale, so I apologize, I don't know what the company is. Whoever was selling them had the word KP Halloween Fall, so I'm not sure if like KP stands for a company or a brand. But like you could add, a sticker or two. And then I had this one, it came with a cute little acorn on it. So you could add those to the corner, and that would be really cute. Another idea is, this is die cut. I think it might be a Tim Holtz one. But you could cut out a couple more of those and layer them, and that would be a little bit flatter. And again, you could add this little acorn sticker and maybe some sort of word or embellishment. This one says A Season of Blessings. And you could glue that down underneath there, and that would be really cute. And today, since I'm in the mood to decorate with a few flowers, I'm going to add some 3D embellishments, and then I think I'm also going to attach this sentiment on here. So I'm going to add a few little flowers right here in this corner, and I'm still trying to decide if I put the sentiment up here. I might just leave it here and leave the top blank. But I'm going to add a few flowers right here. And so I'm going to try to leave it tied, so I kind of know where it ties shut, so I don't glue anything there. But I did pull out a whole bunch of like fall colored theme flowers in my stash. I have some greens and some yellows and some reds, and there's a couple browns in here. But I'm just thinking, like I said, I might just add a couple of flowers to it. And I'm just trying to pick out a couple that I might want to use. So I think I kind of have a rough idea on how I want to lay out my flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and glue them down. Sometimes I do like to add little flower stamens or little bead sprays, but I think I'm just going to leave it with just these flowers on here. So there's the finished floral spray that I just added to decorate it up just a little bit. Really like how that turned out with all the pretty fall colors. And then I did end up deciding to move my sentiment up to the top along with a couple flowers. And in case anybody is wondering, the die cut is a Spellbinders die cut. And then the rubber stamp that I used that says A Season of Blessings did come from this set from Close to My Heart called Flourish Blessings. And the number for that one is D1379. I don't know if they still sell that one or not. It's been in my stash for a few years, but I do like that one. I just wanted to thank everyone so much for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful day and happy crafting.